The morning sky above the valley was soft and bright, painted with gentle shades of gold as the sun slowly rose behind the mountains. Evan Hale stood on a thin, rocky ledge, scanning the landscape with his small handheld scanner. He was one of the human explorers assigned to map this new world, a planet filled with strange plants, tall crystal formations, and glowing rivers that ran like lines of silver across the ground. To most people, this place felt wild and dangerous, but to Evan, it felt exciting and full of possibility. He listened to the quiet wind brushing across the cliffs and wondered if he would find anything interesting today. His team was camped several kilometers away, resting and repairing their equipment, so Evan had gone out alone to survey the valley. It was supposed to be a simple patrol. Nothing unusual, nothing strange, but then he heard it. A soft cry, half whimper, half call for help echoed from the canyon below. It was a sound he had never heard before, but it carried emotion in it. Fear, pain, loneliness. Evan stopped moving, his senses sharpened. He listened again. There it was. A small cry, like a frightened animal. He adjusted the scanner, but it showed no usual life form. This valley was known to be almost empty of creatures, but the sound was too real to ignore. After a moment of thought, he made a decision. He climbed down the rocky path carefully, testing each step so he wouldn't slip. When he reached the bottom of the canyon, the sound grew louder. A tiny shape lay between two large boulders. It was curled tightly, trembling. Evan approached slowly, not wanting to scare whatever it was. When he finally got close enough to see it clearly, he froze. It was a dragon. A very small one, no bigger than a large dog. Its scales were a soft, sky-blue color that shimmered gently with the light. Its wings were folded around its body, like a protective blanket. One of the wings had a deep scratch, as if it had gotten hurt while falling or running away from something. Evan's heart softened. He had read theories that dragon-like species might live on this planet, but nobody had actually seen one. And here was a baby dragon, injured and alone. The creature lifted its head weakly and stared at him with wide silver eyes. There was no anger, no threat, only fear and confusion. "It's okay," Evan whispered softly. "I won't hurt you." The baby dragon let out a soft squeak, as if asking for help. Evan slowly knelt beside it and opened a small medkit from his belt. He moved gently, showing his hand so the creature could see he carried no weapon. When he touched the scratched wing, the dragon flinched but didn't pull away. Evan cleaned the wound carefully and wrapped a light bandage around it. The dragon watched his every move, its eyes shining with curiosity and something deeper he did not understand yet. "There," Evan said quietly. "That should help." When he tried to stand, the dragon panicked. It crawled forward quickly and wrapped its small front legs around his boot, refusing to let him move. "Hey, easy," Evan said. "I need to go back to my team. They're waiting for me." But the dragon only held tighter. Evan sighed softly. "You don't want me to leave, do you?" The dragon gave a tiny shake of its head, an action so human-like that it surprised him. He looked around the empty canyon. The creature truly seemed alone. No nest, no parents, no other dragons nearby. Maybe it had been separated from its family. Maybe they were gone. Maybe it had nobody left. Evan crouched again and gently stroked its head. The dragon leaned into his touch, letting out a soft rumble like a warm purr. "It's all right," he whispered. "I'll stay a little longer." The dragon brightened at his words, lifting its head and flapping its healthy wing once, though the injured one remained still. Evan sat down on a flat stone, trying to think. His team would wonder where he was if he didn't return soon. But he couldn't simply abandon an injured creature that clearly needed help. The dragon crawled closer and pressed against his side, seeking warmth and comfort. Evan gave a small smile despite the situation. "You're friendly," he said softly. "Much friendlier than I expected a dragon to be." The creature made a soft chirping sound as if agreeing. Evan studied its features. Smooth scales, light horns, a long tail curled neatly around itself. It seemed young, too young to survive alone in a place like this. "What should I call you?" he wondered aloud. The dragon tilted its head, as if waiting. "Eris," Evan decided. Because your scales look like the morning sky. The dragon blinked slowly, then gave a gentle rumble of approval. The name seemed to please it. Evan chuckled. All right then, Eris. After some time, Evan tried again to stand. I really need to go back, he explained kindly. I'll return, I promise. But Eris moved faster than Evan expected. In one smooth motion, the baby dragon wrapped its tail around Evan's leg and pressed its small body against him, refusing to let go. Its grip was surprisingly strong for such a young creature. Eris, Evan sighed, gently trying to free himself. I'm not leaving forever. I just need to report to my team. Eris made a soft, trembling sound, almost like a scared whine. The sound hit Evan in the heart. It was not a stubborn cry, it was fear. Deep fear. Fear of being left alone again. Evan slowly sat back down, and Eris immediately climbed into his lap, curling up like a frightened child. The dragon rested its head on his knee and refused to move. Hey, you're really scared, aren't you? Evan whispered. Eris didn't answer, but the tightness in its little body told him everything. Evan looked up at the sky. Hours had passed since he left camp. His team was probably sending messages through the communicator. He checked it several pings, but the canyon walls blocked the signal. He would have to climb out to reply. Evan glanced at Eris, who watched him with wide, nervous eyes. Okay, he said finally. I won't leave until you feel safe. The baby dragon relaxed a little, curling its tail around his arm instead of his leg. It seemed to trust him more now. Evan felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not just sympathy, something deeper. A quiet feeling that he had stumbled into a connection far more meaningful than a simple rescue. He looked around the canyon. It was peaceful, maybe too peaceful. No signs of predators, no danger, but also no evidence of any dragon activity. This place felt abandoned. Eris lifted its head suddenly. It looked toward the cliffs, ears twitching. Evan noticed the dragon's body tense slightly, as if remembering something painful. Your family? Evan asked gently. Eris lowered its head and pressed against him again. That answer was enough. All right, Evan murmured. I understand. For the next hour, Evan stayed with Eris, offering food from his pack and water from his canteen. The dragon accepted gratefully, even playfully nudging his hand after each sip. When a breeze blew through the canyon, Eris tucked its head under Evan's arm for warmth, trembling just a little. Evan wrapped an emergency blanket around both of them, creating a small shelter against the wind. The dragon's trembling slowly faded, replaced by soft, sleepy breaths. He looked down at the creature resting against him. A baby dragon, not a myth, not a rumor, but a real living being. And for some unknown reason, Eris had chosen him. I'll figure out a solution, Evan whispered. I won't just leave you here. Eris shifted slightly in his lap, making a content sound. Evan remained awake, thinking deeply. His team needed him. His mission mattered. But Eris mattered too. The dragon was alone, hurt, and emotionally tied to him in a way he didn't yet understand. He sighed softly. This is going to be complicated, he said to himself. But one thing was certain, Eris would not let Evan go. Not yet. Not until the young dragon understood something it could not express with words. And somewhere deep inside, Evan felt that this moment, this unexpected meeting, was the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could imagine. The sun climbed higher above the jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the quiet valley. Evan Hale stretched his tired arms as he sat beside the small sleeping dragon curled against him. Eris breathed softly, its little chest rising and falling with a gentle rhythm. The night had passed slowly, but peacefully. Evan had not slept much every time Eris shifted or whimpered in its sleep. He had stayed awake to make sure the young creature felt safe. Now the morning light painted the dragon's scales with a soft glow. Eris blinked awake, its silver eyes brightening the moment they landed on Evan. The baby dragon chirped, pressing its head against his arm like a greeting. Good morning, Evan said with a tired smile, as he brushed a few small bits of dust from Eris's wings. Ready for another day? Eris answered with a small rumble. clearly excited simply because Evan was still there. Evan knew he needed to return to his team soon. His communicator still wasn't receiving signals this deep in the canyon, and they would definitely be worried. But as soon as he shifted to stand up, Eris tensed and grabbed his sleeve with its claws, not hurting him, but holding on tightly. "Eris," Evan sighed kindly. "I told you I wouldn't leave, but I really need to get out of this canyon to send a message." Eris shook its head quickly, eyes wide with fear. The reaction was stronger than before. Evan could see the panic forming in the little dragon's eyes. It wasn't just worry. It wasn't stubbornness. It was something old and deep, fear of being left behind. Evan knelt again and rested a hand on Eris's head. The dragon settled slightly, but its grip remained firm. "All right," Evan said softly. "I won't climb out just yet. Let's explore the valley instead. Okay? Maybe we'll find something that helps us understand why you're so afraid." Eris tilted its head, then let go of his sleeve. The tiny dragon hopped onto a nearby rock, waiting for Evan to follow. Evan packed his small gear bag, keeping the med kit ready for Eris's injured wing just in case. The bandage had held overnight, but Eris still moved carefully, refusing to stretch the wounded wing. Side by side, man and dragon started walking through the canyon, a valley full of strange signs. The deeper they walked, the more unusual the valley became. Strange crystal pillars rose from the ground like frozen waves, each one reflecting sunlight in soft blue hues. Vines hung between the rocks like silver threads, glowing faintly even in daylight. Evan scanned the area with his device, but the readings were strange patterns he had not seen before. "This place wasn't on any of our reports," he muttered. Eris hopped from rock to rock, occasionally looking back to make sure Evan followed. At times it would bring small, shiny stones to him, placing them in his hands with proud little chirps. "You're collecting treasures?" Evan laughed gently. "Or are you giving them to me?" Eris puffed its tiny chest, showing a stone with a shimmering blue stripe. Evan accepted it politely, and Eris's tail swished happily. But as they walked deeper into the valley, the mood shifted. The wind grew quieter. The natural sounds faded, until only their footsteps echoed softly across the stone floor. Eris slowed down. Evan noticed immediately. "What is it?" Eris stared ahead, ears twitching. There was an opening in the rock, a hidden cave entrance, half covered by vines. The inside glowed faintly with a soft blue light. "A cave?" Evan whispered. Eris chirped softly, almost sadly, and stepped toward it. Its body language was different, calmer, but heavier, like it remembered something. Evan followed carefully. Ancient walls that whispered stories. Inside the cave, the light grew brighter. It wasn't fire, and it wasn't sunlight. The cave walls themselves glowed faintly, covered in patterns of luminous markings. Evan stepped closer, brushing dust off the surface. They were carvings, carefully shaped symbols depicting dragons of different sizes. Some flew across the sky. Others walked beside tall figures. Evan froze. Those figures looked like humans. "Eris, do you know what this is?" he asked quietly. The baby dragon sat beside him, staring at the carvings with sad eyes. Evan gently traced the outline of one carving. A large dragon stood beside a tall, human-like figure holding a staff. Their hands touched not in battle, but in companionship. Another carving showed small dragons, curled beside children. Another depicted huge dragons guiding groups of humans through mountain paths. "This is," Evan whispered, "an old alliance." He stepped back slowly, overwhelmed. Were humans and dragons once allies here? But how? When? Humanity had only just reached this planet. How could ancient carvings depict them? Unless the dragons had once known a species very similar to humans, a species that had disappeared long ago. Evan looked at Eris. The little dragon stared at the carvings with a deep sadness in its eyes. "Is this why you cling to me?" Evan asked softly. "Because you think I'm like them?" Eris didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. The dragon pressed its head against Evan's shoulder gently. The answer was clear. Eris had bonded to him because something inside the young dragon recognized him not as a stranger, but as a familiar heart, a living echo of the ones the dragons had lost, a promise carved in stone. Evan continued studying the walls. The carvings began to change as they moved deeper into the cave. The later sections told a darker story, dragons flying toward empty skies, humans or human-like beings fading from the scenes, dragons waiting, grieving, searching. The final carving showed a small dragon curled alone at the center of an empty valley. Eris walked slowly to that carving, touching it with its nose. The little dragon's body trembled slightly. Evan knelt beside Eris. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. "I'm here." Eris turned and pressed its forehead to Evan's chest. The dragon wasn't crying. Dragons didn't cry like humans, but the emotion was strong and clear. Evan wrapped his arms around the small creature, careful not to touch the injured wing. As they stayed like that, the glowing walls dimmed slightly, as if the cave itself understood the moment. A silent message through the mountains. After some time, the pair left the cave. Eris seemed calmer now, not cured of its fear, but no longer panicking every time Evan took a step away. However, the dragon still never let him get too far. If Evan walked several meters ahead, Eris hurried to his side. If Evan stopped suddenly, Eris pressed close to him. The bond between them was clear, even if Evan didn't fully understand it yet. "Let's keep exploring," Evan said. "Maybe there's more to learn." Eris nodded eagerly. They climbed over boulders, crossed small streams, and walked along narrow ridges. Every part of the valley had some sign of ancient dragon presence, scratches shaped like symbols on rocks, large nests carved into cliffs, and strange stone circles that looked like meeting grounds. But everything was abandoned. It seemed the dragons had not lived here for a long time. Evan felt a strange sadness settle in him. What had happened? Why did the dragons vanish? And how had Eris ended up alone? As they walked, Evan's scanner suddenly flickered, picking up a faint signal, a message from his team. He lifted the device. Finally. But Eris reacted instantly. The baby dragon ran in front of him, blocking his path. Wings half spread in fear. "Eris, it's just my team," Evan explained. "They're friends, not enemies." Eris shook its head quickly. Its tail wrapped around Evan's leg again lightly, not painfully, but firmly enough to show its fear. "You don't want me to go near them," Evan realized. "Because you think they'll take me away from you?" Eris lowered its head. Evan gently reached down and stroked the dragon's neck. "I'm not leaving you. I made a promise." Eris looked up. Its silver eyes shimmered. "But I do need to tell my team something," Evan continued. "They're worried." The baby dragon hesitated, then slowly unwrapped its tail. It stepped aside, but stayed close, watching every move with anxious attention. Evan lifted the communicator again. "This is Evan Hale. I'm alive. I'm safe. I found something. Something important. I can't return to camp yet, but I'll explain soon." Static came through the device, but a faint reply followed. "Evan? Are you hurt? Where are you?" Evan sighed. "It's complicated. I'm not alone. I'll contact you again soon." He ended the call before they could ask more questions. Eris stepped close again, gently nudging his hand. Evan smiled softly. "See? I didn't leave." Eris let out a relieved chirp, a question without an answer. As the sun began to lower, the long shadows returned to the valley. Evan and Eris sat on a flat stone ledge overlooking the landscape. The wind carried a soft hum, like distant memories drifting between mountains. Evan's mind was full of questions. Why did dragons carve humans into their history? Why had those people disappeared? Why did Eris cling to him so fiercely as if he was the last link to something ancient and precious? Whatever the truth was, Evan felt it mattered more than his mission, more than any report he could write. He looked at Eris, who leaned comfortably against his side. "There's a secret in these mountains," Evan said quietly, "and I think you and I are meant to find it together." Eris let out a soft, hopeful rumble, and with that, the bond between them grew stronger, gentle, unbroken, and filled with a mystery waiting to be uncovered. The sky darkened earlier than usual as Evan and Eris climbed back toward the upper part of the valley. Heavy gray clouds gathered above the mountain peaks like slow-moving giants. A quiet rumble of thunder echoed through the cliffs, warning them that a storm was coming. Evan looked up with concern. This doesn't look good. We need to find shelter quickly. Far. Eris, walking close beside him, chirped anxiously. The baby dragon didn't like storms. Evan could feel the dragon's small body tense every time the thunder rolled across the sky. Don't worry, he said softly, giving Eris a gentle pat. We'll be safe. Let's move fast. The wind started to pick up, blowing dust and loose leaves around their feet. The valley, once calm and peaceful, now felt like it was breathing deeply with the coming storm. Evan looked around for a safe place somewhere high enough to avoid flooding, but covered enough to shield them from the rain and falling rocks. Eris trotted ahead and pointed its nose toward a narrow pathway that led to a small hollow in the cliffside. Evan nodded. Good idea. Let's check it. They reached the opening just as the first drops of rain fell. The hollow wasn't deep, a small pocket in the rock, but it was enough to keep them safe from the weather. Evan guided Eris inside first. As they settled in, the storm grew stronger. Rain poured down like a river falling from the sky. Wind whistled through the rocks, and flashes of distant lightning lit up the valley. Eris pressed close to Evan, trembling slightly. You don't like storms, do you? Evan whispered. It's okay. I've got you. The little dragon tucked its head under Evan's arm, hiding from the noise. Evan wrapped part of his emergency blanket around Eris, keeping it warm and calm. But suddenly, a sharp crack echoed from above. Evan's instincts sharpened instantly. He looked up, eyes wide. A large piece of the cliff broke loose. Move, he shouted, pushing Eris gently toward the back of the hollow. The dragon darted safely inside. But Evan was still near the entrance when a heavy chunk of rock fell. He jumped back in time, but the falling stone hit his gear pack, smashing one of the crates he carried. Dust filled the air. A few small stones bounced inside the hollow. Eris cried out in panic and ran to Evan, circling him quickly to check for injuries. I'm okay, Evan said, breathing hard. Just a close call. He sat against the wall and wiped dust from his face. Eris climbed onto his lap, curling up tightly as if trying to protect him now. Evan smiled tiredly and stroked the dragon's head. See? We both made it. The storm raged outside, but inside the hollow, a strange peace settled over them. Rain hammered the rocks, but the small space they found held them safely together. A moment of heart connection. After a few minutes, Eris lifted its head and looked at Evan with wide silver eyes. The dragon's expression was full of emotion, worry, relief, and something deeper. You were scared for me, Evan said softly. Just like I was scared for you. Eris touched Evan's chest lightly with its nose, as if trying to sense his heartbeat. It then gave a soft rumble and pressed its forehead against his. Evan felt a warm pulse in his chest, gentle and strange, like a connection forming. It wasn't magic, but it was close, something emotional. Something ancient. A bond. Eris pulled back slightly and stared into Evan's eyes. Then the dragon slowly extended a wing, not the injured one, and wrapped it partly around him. Evan laughed quietly. Are you trying to protect me now? Eris nodded softly. The baby dragon's gesture was simple but powerful. In that moment, Evan understood something important. Eris wasn't clinging to him selfishly. Eris was afraid of losing someone again. Evan placed a hand on the dragon's head. It's okay. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. Eris's body relaxed, but the dragon stayed close, still watching the storm outside cautiously. A vision from the dragon memory. As lightning flashed, the hollow momentarily brightened. Eris flinched and accidentally brushed against Evan's hand with its forehead. And then something unexpected happened. A soft echo passed through Evan's mind. It wasn't a voice, and it wasn't a picture. It was more like a feeling. A memory not his own. It lasted only a second, but it was enough to startle him. He saw dragons, grown dragons, circling above a group of tall, human-like beings. They all looked at one another with trust and friendship. The scene was peaceful and warm. Then the vision faded. Evan blinked, stunned. What? Was that? He whispered. Eris stared at him, head tilted. The baby dragon seemed nervous, as if unsure how Evan would react. You showed me something, Evan said slowly. Didn't you? Eris stepped closer, touching his hand again. Another soft echo passed through Evan's mind. This time a feeling of deep sadness, of separation, of waiting for someone who never returned. Evan's chest tightened. He understood. Eris. Your kind has memories that pass from one generation to another. Even babies can feel them. Eris nodded softly, pressing against him again. Evan swallowed hard as the truth hit him fully. The dragons had once had partners, friends who looked like humans, and something had taken those partners away long ago. The older dragons remembered, and even young dragons like Eris felt the sorrow of that loss. That was why Eris clung to him. That was why the dragon feared being left alone. Evan gently cupped Eris's cheek with his palm. So that's why. You thought I might disappear too. Eris lowered its head, confirming it. That's why you didn't want me to walk away. Evan continued. Because you were scared I'd vanish. Just like the ones before. Eris let out a soft sound, something between a sigh and a whimper. Evan hugged the dragon gently, careful of its injured wing. I understand now. I really do. But listen. He pulled back enough to look into Eris's eyes. I am not going to vanish. I won't disappear without telling you. You don't have to cling to me forever. I'm here. I'll stay. Eris blinked slowly, absorbing his words. For the first time since they met, the dragon loosened its grip completely. Eris didn't cling, didn't hold onto his sleeve, didn't wrap its tail around his leg. Instead, Eris simply sat beside him, close, trusting, calm. Evan smiled softly. Thank you. I'm proud of you. Eris let out a small chirp of happiness. A gentle release. The storm outside slowly began to settle. The rain softened. The thunder drifted away. The wind quieted. Inside the hollow, Eris rested its head peacefully on Evan's lap. The dragon wasn't trembling anymore. Evan brushed a hand gently along its back. You're a brave little one, he whispered. Eris rumbled softly, enjoying the gentle touch. Evan leaned back and let his eyes rest. The warmth of the dragon against him, the calming sound of the fading rain, and the fresh air seeping into the hollow all made him feel strangely safe, like he belonged here. After some minutes, Eris lifted its head again. The dragon seemed different now, still young, still emotional, but stronger, more confident. Eris stepped away from Evan, not in fear, not in sadness, but with a steady, gentle movement. The dragon turned and looked at the hollow's entrance, then looked back at Evan, as if inviting him outside. You're ready to step out? Evan asked. Eris nodded. Evan stood up slowly. His legs were a bit stiff, but he was fine. He checked Eris's injured wing, still bandaged, still healing. Let's go, he said with a smile. Together, they walked out of the hollow and into the fresh, rain-washed valley. The tears of understanding. The moment they stepped out, Eris stopped. The baby dragon looked up at the sky, then at Evan. Its eyes shimmered, not from fear, but from emotion. Eris moved closer and gently pressed its forehead against Evan's chest. A warm drop fell on Evan's hand. A tear. Eris wasn't crying from sadness. It was crying from understanding, from the relief that Evan truly understood its fear, its loneliness, and its bond. Evan knelt and hugged the dragon softly. It's all right. I understand now. And I'm not leaving. Eris let out a quiet, emotional sound, and wrapped its good wing around him, not tightly, but gently, like a promise. The storm had passed, both outside and inside the little dragon's heart. For the first time since their meeting, Eris didn't hold Evan by force. Eris stayed by choice, and that choice was beautiful. The storm had passed, leaving the valley fresh and shining. Drops of water clung to the stones like tiny crystals. The air smelled clean, and a soft mist floated low over the ground. Evan and Eris stood at the edge of the hollow, looking out at the calm world around them. Eris breathed deeply, letting the cool air fill its little lungs. The baby dragon's body no longer trembled. Its injured wing remained wrapped in the bandage. But Eris no longer leaned on Evan in fear. Instead, the dragon stood proudly beside him, close, but steady. Evan smiled. "You're stronger today." BG Stragris. If G's and 5. Eris chirped softly, as if saying thank you. The valley looked peaceful, but Evan knew their time alone was coming to an end. His team was still waiting. They needed him, and Eris needed more than just his company. It needed safety, maybe even other dragons. "We should move," Evan said gently. "I have to take you with me. My team needs to see you. And we need to learn more about your kind." Eris tilted its head. The dragon didn't cling to him this time. It simply stepped forward and touched its nose to his hand in agreement. Evan felt a warm wave of pride. Eris was growing braver every minute, a journey toward the unknown. Evan and Eris began their journey up the long slope leading out of the valley. The climb was slow, but the view grew wider as they rose. Eris hopped across rocks with ease, sometimes running ahead, sometimes returning to walk at Evan's side. Every few steps, Eris would bring Evan a small treasure, a shiny pebble, a glowing plant leaf, even a small feather from a mountain bird. Evan accepted each one with a smile. "You really like sharing things," he said. Eris puffed out its chest proudly, making Evan laugh. Halfway up the path, Evan stopped to catch his breath. Eris sat in front of him, watching with gentle concern. "I'm fine," he said, waving a hand. "Just need a short break." Eris nudged his shoulder softly. Evan looked at the mountains ahead. They seemed endless, towering into the clouds. But somewhere beyond them waited his team, and a future that neither he nor Eris fully understood yet. The first sign of trouble. They continued walking until the ground beneath them suddenly shook. A deep rumble echoed through the mountains. Evan grabbed a rock for balance. "An earthquake," he whispered. Eris immediately tensed, ears flat. Then, from the ridge above them, rocks began to fall, small ones at first, then larger. Evan pulled Eris close as a boulder crashed nearby, breaking into pieces. "We have to move," Evan shouted. They ran along the narrow path, avoiding falling stones. Eris stayed right beside him, matching his steps with surprising speed. The dragon's movements were quick and agile, helping Evan avoid several rocks. Finally, they reached a safer area behind a tall stone pillar. Evan leaned against it, catching his breath. That was close. Eris chirped sharply, as if scolding the mountain for the danger. Evan smiled and stroked its head. "Thank you. You really helped me back there." Eris lifted its head proudly. But the shaking hadn't finished its effect. Up ahead, the path they needed to climb was blocked. A large section had collapsed, blocking the easiest route. Evan frowned. "We'll have to take the long way around." Eris looked at the blocked path, then at Evan, then chirped confidently. The dragon seemed sure they could still make it. "All right," Evan said. "Lead the way. A hero emerges." They followed a new trail along a higher ridge. The ground was uneven, and the wind grew stronger. Eris stayed close, sensing Evan's careful steps. After an hour of slow climbing, they finally reached the upper plateau. From here, the valley stretched out behind them like a painting. Evan took a deep breath, feeling relief. "We're almost out," he said. But the relief faded instantly when he heard a distant voice echo through the mountains. "Evan, Evan, can you hear us?" Evan's heart jumped. "That's my team!" He turned toward the sound and saw 3 small figures far across the slope, his fellow explorers, waving their arms. Eris stiffened beside him. The dragon looked nervous but didn't cling this time. Evan crouched down. "It's okay. These are good people. They won't hurt you. They'll want to help you." Eris swallowed and nodded slowly, trusting him. Together, they walked toward the team. The meeting of 2 worlds. As the team grew closer, their expressions shifted from relief to shock. Eris stayed near Evan, watching the humans carefully but not hiding. Evan spoke first. "It's all right," he said loudly. "Don't be afraid. This is Eris. He's a baby dragon. I found him injured." One of the team members, a woman named Maria, stared with wide eyes. "A dragon? This is real? You actually found one? Eris made a soft chirp, unsure how to respond to the human's stares. Evan placed a calming hand on the dragon's head. He's friendly. Just scared. The team approached slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. Eris took a step back but didn't cling to Evan. Instead, the baby dragon lifted its head proudly, showing the humans that it trusted Evan, and therefore they should too. Maria whispered, "It's incredible." Another team member knelt a short distance away. "He's beautiful. Look at his scales." "Oh, his wing is injured. I bandaged it," Evan explained. "He's healing." The humans exchanged amazed looks. It was clear that this moment meant something big, not just for them, but for all of humanity. A sudden danger. Before they could continue speaking, the ground shook again, another aftershock. Loose rocks began to roll from the ridge above. "Everyone move," Evan shouted. A large slab of stone broke free and slid down the slope, heading straight toward Maria, who had slipped on the uneven ground. "Eris!" Evan shouted without thinking, but Eris was already moving. The baby dragon sprinted faster than any human could, leaping over rocks and sliding across the wet ground. With surprising strength, Eris pushed Maria aside just before the stone crashed where she had stood. Maria rolled to the side, unharmed but shaken. Eris stood protectively in front of her, wings spread, body trembling with effort. Evan ran over, relief washing over him. "Eris, you saved her." Maria sat up slowly, staring at the little dragon in awe. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Eris made a soft, almost embarrassed chirp, lowering its wings. The team looked at the dragon with a new understanding, now not as a creature to fear, but as a brave friend. A new bond of trust. The team helped clear the path and finally made it to a safe open area. Eris walked confidently beside Evan, stopping now and then to look at the humans with thoughtful eyes. Evan explained everything: the carvings, the ancient alliance, the dragon memories, Eris's fear of abandonment, and the moment the dragon trusted him fully. The team listened carefully. Maria spoke gently. "Evan, this isn't just a discovery. This is history. If dragons used to trust humans, or human-like beings, we need to learn more. And Eris might be the key." Evan nodded. "I know. But we have to protect him. He's still young. And he lost his family." Eris nudged Evan's leg softly, as if telling him it was okay to talk about it. Maria smiled warmly. "Don't worry, Eris. You're with us now." Eris chirped softly in gratitude. Humanity's place in dragon history. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and pink, the team and Eris walked together toward the research camp. The journey felt different now, not dangerous, not lonely, but hopeful. Eris stayed close to Evan, but the dragon also allowed the other humans to walk beside them. Sometimes Eris even brushed gently against their arms, showing trust. When they reached the camp, the rest of the crew rushed out in surprise. A baby dragon walking beside a human man. It was something they had never imagined. But Eris stood tall, unafraid. The dragon no longer clung, no longer trembled, no longer feared Evan leaving. Eris knew the truth now. Evan was not going to disappear. And Evan knew another truth. Humanity had a chance not just to explore this new world, but to rebuild an ancient bond lost long ago. A bond between humans and dragons. A bond built on trust, courage, and shared hearts. The beginning of a new future. That night, Eris curled up beside Evan's tent, not because of fear, but because it wanted to. The dragon lifted its head once and looked at the stars above. Evan sat beside Eris and whispered, "We're a team now, and together, we'll help your kind and mine reconnect." Eris gently rested its head on Evan's shoulder. The baby dragon's silver eyes shone with hope. The mountains were silent. The storm had passed. And a new chapter, one that would change the future of two species, had finally begun.